Welcome to Film Critics, and today myself and my lovely co-host Colleen will be discussing successes and failures of the 2019 Mulan film. Colleen, thank you for joining me, and I'm looking forward to our discussion.
Thank you. And so I'm curious why you said 2019 instead of 2020.
I believe it was filmed in 2019.
Filmed in 2019, but released in 2020. Okay.
Released in 2020, yeah. So, before I start whining, if I would love to hear your thoughts, maybe details which you've noticed, and um, your ideas why the reasons probably why it was a failure, a flop.
Well, it's interesting because I think there's so much to unpack here. I think one of the biggest things, though, is the saying that I grew up hearing, and probably many people are familiar with, is the road to hell is paved with good intentions. I think that the people involved in this production in the 2020 release of the live action Mulan had really good intentions. At least that's what they stated when they were interviewed about the movie when it was coming out, and all the time working on it, from the costumers and the director and the actors and everyone involved. They had great expectations, and I think they really did want to do something special with the movie, but things went awry, and intentions mean nothing if you can't produce what it is you're actually trying to do. Like, there were many problems with this 2020 version, and but it doesn't start there. So the real story, I think, of all this starts back with the original version. When we look at the original Mulan, which was made in 1998. So it was a Disney franchise that was created, an animated original, came out in 1998. It had a $304 million worldwide that it reaped rewards profit on a $90 million budget, $90 million compared to what the 2020 was. And because it had never been done before, the benefit of doing a story like this, they took an old folk tale. So Mulan was actually originally written as a song, and it came about as a folk tale about a local hero from the 400 AD, I think it was, in the northern provinces of China. And it became very popular. And when Disney made this, nobody had any expectations from it because it was brand new. Nobody had told this story before. And it was accepted worldwide. Like, it was produced on at Disney's, at the top level that Disney does work at. And it had the music, it had engaging characters, it had a female protagonist who showed grit and determination and devotion to family, a lot of shared characteristics between sort of the Americanized version that was and the original Chinese folktale of the character. And it was widely accepted worldwide, both by the Chinese community and the American community. It made lots of money compared to its budget for the time, and was very successful. There was a Mulan 2 that came out a few years later, and they didn't stick so much with what made the first one really successful. They went more with a romantic story to try and keep up, but it wasn't bad, and it was still accepted, and it did okay. It went straight to video, though. It never had a theatrical release, just straight to video. But Disney, they have this propensity to take something that has done well and then say, well, let's do the live action. They try these live actions, and they're never as successful as the original animated. They may have learned their lesson with this one. I don't know. We're going to talk about another one that they tried later, where they didn't do well. But yeah, they really missed the boat on Mulan, and it's too bad because they had so much going for them going into this. but they ticked a lot of people off with not getting it right and not getting historical things right. And they changed the story, and they just fell short. And I think the problem is number one, the expectations that had already been set with the original. It had done so well and was so popular around the globe that when they came out with the live action, uh, because they had talked it up and how good their intentions were, they wanted to be more authentic to the real Chinese story and the heritage and the culture and everything involved. And they made so many mistakes in that arena that it's like, why are you telling us that this is what you're going to focus on and then not produce, not do that? So I think expectations were part of the big problem. And then there was COVID, and they had some other issues along the way in this coming out. But I think one of the biggest problems that Mulan had was high expectations that they just couldn't live up to. So that's my first take on it.
That's a really good point. I was thinking about the same set of expectations set by the original film, animated film made in 1998. Mm-hmm. And honestly, what they needed to do is just stick to the same story and not to screw up. They took away Mushu, which was, I would say, the lead of the whole action, behind the back. But also, they've shown that they have no idea what they're doing. Simple detail, like for folks who are a little bit in the Chinese culture, like myself. In the original film, Mulan and her family, they lived in a house. In the film of 2020, released in 2020, we have a sort of a multifamily circular structure, which was popular in the southern provinces of China. If my memory serves me well, it's Fujian, which has nothing really much to do with the northern provinces where she actually lived. Then another detail, when she travels to join the army, they show different sceneries, which are completely different from the actual locations of where she was traveling from and to. They show something which is thousands of miles away. For those who are maybe not into Chinese geography or culture, that might not be something, just looks good, right? But I saw it right away. Then it did remind me a lot of Panda Kung Fu because of Chi.
Oh my goodness. That bothered me. Oh, the whole thing, the way they presented Chi like it was some kind of superpower as opposed to natural energy. Like, it was so bizarre. Like, I just kept going, what are they saying? What are they trying to do? Like, only men have Chi? Really? Then the rest of us are walking dead? Like,
no, actually, in Mulan's case, she had the power of Chi, right? In this film, which every human has it if you train it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, they made it out to like they brought in elements that had no connection to the original story or the original film. The way they talked about Chi and the way they gave her almost superpowers, it made no sense. The witch that they brought in, that's not part of Chinese culture. There's one scene, they just got so many things wrong. It's like they had no one doing research in theater. You have somebody called a dramaturg who does the research on the time, the era, the playwright, to get all of the details right so that they become invisible basically to the story. They don't stand out glaring like, where did that come from? So what you were talking about now, that, like you said, the American audiences wouldn't notice that the geography was wrong or that the architecture was wrong or all that. But you're making a story that was a remake of a story that was hugely popular in China. And again, it's going to be distributed to China, and that's going to be a big audience for them. Why wouldn't they take the time to research that and get it right? It would be like us telling a story, or it would be like the Chinese making a movie about Paul Bunyan and setting it in the Southwest desert instead of the Northwest woods or the, like in Minnesota or something. Like
Yeah,
it's a cultural icon that we know in our hearts and souls as Americans. We grew up with these stories, and then for someone to tell it and get so many details wrong, it's offensive, right? Offensive.
it's um, it's just poor work. And as you mentioned, recently, it does feel like Disney doesn't know what they do. They hire people based on I don't know what criterias.
Right? Yeah.
But we have many other details. For example, a lot of shots, I wouldn't remember all of them, but a lot of shots that I remember, they felt not like a feature film, but more of a documentary slash reality. A lot of
That's
camera
interesting.
movements or angles or shots that we
Okay,
thought,
so from a director's perspective, you picked up on that.
yeah, those obviously music was absent.
Yeah.
And the thing which you mentioned that there is a research or a researcher
Hmm.
in theater or film, it was a co-production, so they had enough Chinese resources from China authentically to tell them, hey, bro, that's from another
Yeah.
part of the.
What are you thinking? What are you doing?
And scenes which could have been better with Donnie Yen, which we've discussed his Yip Man earlier, right? It felt like Donnie Yen or Jet Li just came up to hang out, show a few slacky moves, get the money, get the title or on their IMDb that they've
Yeah.
done Mulan with Disney, and no one cared. I do not know the director personally, so I wouldn't,
The director is Nikki Caro.
yeah,
So it's a woman, and her last name is Caro. Nikki Caro.
right,
I don't know
yeah.
her work, but
Yeah, me neither. And I don't know the person in person, so I wouldn't say, well, that's just careless person. From the work, it feels like, but also it could be the thing that she was put in these circumstances that she had no choice. Like, I have to do something, and that's what I have. So let me
yeah,
pull whatever together. But
true.
with Mulan flop, and then if you remember, we once discussed the fail of TV platform of Paramount.
Yes.
And one of the reasons was that they had some executives moved from Disney to Paramount TV platform.
Oh,
Just like
interesting.
one little circle, and it all falls down because people just enjoy their positions, I guess, the business card, and they have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah.
It, in my humble opinion, it didn't need much of the budget to film, unless you have these huge scenes with the war zone and more. Um, it could be done a lot less expensive and a lot better
Yeah.
quality with more details, with just more simple things, which make simplicity is genius.
Yeah. Sadly, with Mulan, Disney gave them, well, you said it was a combination effort, but their budget was about $200 million. And I'm looking at the Box Office Mojo opening weekend. What? Oh God, where did that go? It was like crazy. Okay, so here's the other thing. Mulan 2020, the live action, they didn't have an opening weekend. They didn't open in America in theaters.
Yeah,
Now, why did they decide that? I wonder.
because it
I mean,
wasn't
it
good,
was
so they went
COVID.
to they went on TV right away.
Yeah, maybe because it was COVID. Because it came out. The earliest release date was September 3rd, 2020.
Mhm.
So sadly, they're dealing with that. And there's it's like an act of God. You can't, what do you do with that? Like you make the best of it, I suppose. So there are no numbers as far as box office openings or how we did domestically. It's only the international numbers. And it was 69,965,000, approximately $70 million that they've made to date. And they're not going to make any of that back. That was a huge loss for them. So if you're the executives on this, if you're the company, you're like, how what did we learn from this? What are the things that we learned from it? And I think that do you wait? So here's something for you. Like if you were the executive there, Victor, and you're faced with this $200 million budget. You put a lot of money into it. You really want it to do well. You've hyped it up, and then COVID hits. And you postpone it a little, and you wait and you wait, and you're like, well, how, we have no idea how long this is going to last. Should we just put it out there? What would you have done? I mean, do you think them waiting? I mean, you're assuming now as an executive that you have a good product. So we've already established that the product wasn't great, but to make the most out of it, do you do anything different than what they did? Do you see that they could have taken a different road?
Well, I don't know the executives who are in charge of this specific project, so it's a little bit difficult for me to compare. Maybe they didn't care enough. Maybe they didn't care to actually supervise what's happening.
Yeah.
I wouldn't show. So if let's say I was the CEO of Disney, if I were in that position, I would want to watch it, and not based on my ego, and based on expertise. So if I'm not
Yeah.
in Chinese culture, I would have some experts tell me, hey,
Yeah.
that is wrong. Hey, this is no good. The story is too rushed. It's empty. Donnie Yen is just dancing on straight legs when he needs to get into the stance, right? So all of
Yeah.
these details matter for people, especially when quite a bit of our audience, they're used to quality. And when Donnie Yen did John Wick, he did his best. You
Yeah.
can't really find something like, and here it was just like, whatever, I'll show a few moves and you guys do whatever you want.
That could have been directing too, what he was directed to do. But details like this came up. I read an article. I was listening to somebody who was critiquing it as well, and they brought up something that I noticed on a subconscious level, but it didn't come to my mind until I heard them talk about it. And that is at the beginning of the movie when Mulan is getting ready to go in for her to meet the matchmaker, and they get her all, she's supposed to do the tea service and all that, and they're painting her up. They paint her almost like a geisha, like the makeup that they put on her, the white and all that. That's Japanese. That's not Chinese. Like there was nothing about her face makeup that seemed part of the culture. And that stood out on a subconscious level. I was kind of like, huh, that's kind of interesting. But when I heard her say it, I went, that's what it was. It looked geisha. And it just looked wrong. Now, that's something that should have been recognizable right away to anyone. Like, we should check on that because that doesn't seem right. Right?
Yeah. Maybe
Those
they.
kind of details.
Yeah, maybe they did not know. I'm not an expert in the makeup, and multiple things in Japanese culture they came from the Chinese culture. So there is a bit of a connection, even though it might look alike. But you probably have to dig into details and make it better, because it wasn't just okay. It looks more Japanese than it should be, but also it looked really cheap and rushed to me, like quickly.
Yeah.
Makeup. Now, also the performance, I don't know why no one probably does. I don't know why they chose this specific actress who cannot act, in my humble opinion.
Okay.
There are so many more Asian actresses who can act and deliver quality on set, whether it's, tough conditions or whatever, right? It might have been the voice of the Chinese partner because it was a co-production that they wanted this actress because
maybe that was their choice.
But
those are all things we don't know. I mean, I suppose you could find out if you did enough research, but so I found it also interesting. Tell me your take on this. In some of the action scenes and shots where Mulan was doing the fighting and showing off her prowess as a warrior, which we did see at the beginning of the movie. Okay, wait, I'm going to backtrack just a second. This is one of the things that I had a problem with too. In the original story with the animated version, you see how as a little girl, she's always practicing and she's always, doing her moves out in the fields. And she wants to be that warrior, like inside her heart, that's who she is. And being a girl, that doesn't mean anything to her. She has some skills when she comes to the table, when she takes her father's part to be conscripted into the army. In the live action version, you don't see any of those skills. She can run around buildings. Maybe she could do parkour. Like they have her doing that kind of stuff, but you don't see her actually have any fighting skills prior to her going into the army. So I found that was a problem in the story because it just didn't make her ability and her being able to change into a warrior in just a few weeks believable. But other than that, when they were filming those fighting scenes, I got a huge reminiscent thing of, and tell me how you feel about this, of the Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where they were making it sort of magical, like when they're running through air and the feet are going and are running up the side of buildings and things like that. I like that visually, but I mean, I appreciated those particular scenes on a visual scale, but I don't know how it added to the story. So as a martial artist, I'd like to get your take on that and how you felt about how they handled those scenes in the 2020 live action version.
To me, in Mulan's case specifically, in particular, it was nonsense. When we have Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, this is a story built on this supernatural powers of the monk, and
Exactly.
so the whole thing was around that. And even though it's not really real, but you watch, it's a fairy tale.
Right.
Mulan was a real person, right? She didn't fly.
Right. She didn't have special powers.
And even if you want to make something, maybe the director or whoever was nagging at the director liked Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, and they wanted to borrow or steal some elements. They just again made it in a very poor and cheap way. It feels
okay.
Just, but I take it out. In Ang Lee's film, it felt very natural, felt nice, even though, yeah, martial artists don't fly. I mean, come on, but it felt enjoyable, and this thing was Crouching Tiger and the dragon, just was embarrassed and didn't show up to watch the film.
Yeah, I found it interesting. Now, I have to say, because I don't have the martial arts background, those scenes from that perspective didn't bother me, although I wondered why they brought in a lot of magic elements, like with the witch and how they ran up the side of buildings and what Mulan was able to do and flying through the air and some of the things she did. So I thought visually it was interesting, but it didn't add to the story to me. And I think that with everything else on top of it, the other mistakes that they were making, it didn't help to do that.
We don't know what was in the kitchen, so it's not something that we were just bad mouthing the director or the team, not at all. I would love to actually speak to them and see what was happening, because what happened, what is the final product is, if that was me, was me, and I was, let's say, just surrounded by all these circumstances, and that's the final thing that I had, I wouldn't want it out.
Yeah.
At all. I would speak to all of the executive possible and, hey, let's remake it.
Yeah.
We can add scenes with Mushu and Mulan separately, just like little inserts to keep the character. We can animate a character, right? So,
well, it's funny. They kept Mushu out on purpose. They took it out because they were trying to be more authentic. They felt that Mushu, there weren't talking dragons in the original. Like if you listen to the ballad, the original folk tale, there's no cute little talking dragon with an attitude involved. That was all Disney, and it was great for Disney audiences. But they took that element out on purpose, and then having the phoenix fly around in the sky, like I didn't see that. I don't know why they even did that. That didn't.
So they took away Mushu and they took away the dragon and they put in the phoenix, which was again done so cheap. Like you could tell it's cheap.
Yeah, it looked like a kite.
Yeah. The scene with the witch, they tried to make something of a woman empowerment, again in a very rushed, cheap way. I didn't mind having the character because back in the days in Europe, in Asia, there were people practicing magic, whether it's black magic or whatever. So it could be possible. We don't know. Um,
So are you saying then, like, as far as taking a story, a well-known story, like with the folk tale of Mulan, especially well-known in China, that adding elements that aren't originally there um, can enhance it if done right? Like, I think in the original animated version, the adding of Mushu enhanced the story for its comedic relief, right?
yeah.
And so with your opinion of the witch, it's like you felt that her character, even though it wasn't part of the original story, it added to it and therefore was a more acceptable addition as opposed to some of the other elements.
It didn't add anything. I didn't feel like if you take it out, we're not losing anything, right? So it
Yeah.
didn't take anything. It's okay to have, if done well. Again,
Yeah.
as just as you mentioned, if they added a fake, cheaply done phoenix, probably leaving over there Mushu or someone on her shoulder talking to her, wouldn't be a problem. Again, if done well.
Yeah.
Who knows? It can be done worse. But you have a reference, right? You are a director. You have a say. You have a reference, and like you can't really go below already existing normal standard. It wasn't extremely tough, right? But
Yeah.
what I felt, when I spent some time in China with my projects, I've visited cinemas. I tried at least, if not every day, every week, to see what are they producing. And the feeling in each of the film, which I got, the story develops kind of slow. You don't know what's happening, and then very fast development in the end.
Mm.
So it feels like what's happening, boom, rushed. At the end, goodbye. It kind of felt the same way here.
Yeah.
Something was going on, and why is you could use that timing for something a lot better, and I'm sure that a professional would know, unless people are just enjoying the laurel, on their head, by being called a director of a Disney
Yeah.
film.
It's interesting. I find that this goes back to what I said in the very beginning. I think that everyone involved had good intentions with this. I think that what they wanted to do and the reason they left Mushu out and the reason they had a kite looking phoenix and things like that was trying to be more realistic, trying to really bring the story to life in a live action way with real people and real action, be closer to what the historical story was. But they just fell short in so many areas. And it feels like we've already discussed, like a lot of it was just not having enough of the research done ahead of time. They also had, I'm going to check this. I just want to make sure. Yeah, they had 4 writers on the script.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying that's a death sentence, but often when you have that many writers, the voice isn't clear. You don't have a clear through line, and it gets a little garbled in the end. And I think I experienced that when I was watching it. That was one of the things that I felt, and I didn't know there were 4 writers when I was watching it. That was my research afterward that I did. But the voice of the story, the through line, felt a little off to me. It didn't feel consistent. That's what I would say in the script.
Yeah,
You
that
have an
makes sense.
opinion?
Yeah, that makes sense. It did feel very. It felt like raw to me.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. Again, maybe because of the COVID, they were rushed into just go do it and whatever.
Okay, so
Um,
again, like, why then do it? Like, they probably started it prior to COVID. They were most of the way through. It came out at the end of September of
Mhm.
2020. COVID didn't hit here strongly until we didn't get all the crackdown until, what was it,
March
March?
18. I remember
Yeah.
that date. We're filming My American Family. I
I remember
remember.
that day because I went to the grocery store and couldn't get toilet paper.
That's
Like,
true,
there was chaos in the freaking grocery store. I'm like, what is going
it's
on?
quite funny.
Yes. Uh, so it could have just been a perfect storm of things going wrong, you know, for it to turn out that badly. I feel bad. Because I especially for the crew, the director, the people involved, the writers who did have good intentions and wanted to do something. Like when you go into a project, you have the highest of hopes and you want to do your best work, and to have it not do well in the box office and to have it critically just kind of torn apart, it's got to feel pretty bad.
Well, in here, I would try to compare. Was it something that they would honestly trying to do something good or better, or it was their ego involved in saying, "I know better, I know how to do it better," when they
Oh,
actually didn't. This option looks more realistic to me, um, by just watching the final product. Because if really the intention was there to make it good, then they would pay attention to details. They would work with the experts. And
yeah,
I'm not claiming myself, hey, I'm the best expert in the world on the culture. No, I'm decent. But even these details that I've noticed right away about the scenes, about how they filmed the movement of the camera.
yeah,
I mean, it's not Disney. It's probably a version of a film school work of a student
yeah, yeah.
with some money and not knowing what to do. Also, when I was again, I stayed in China for a few months. I watched. There was a film, a big film, made about the history of Tsinghua University,
Okay.
and they just divided into four, I think, different periods of its development, like super early and they, and it felt like okay, someone with connections, just a young kid with his parents or her parents, I don't remember who was the director, um, got the approval, got the money because of the connections, and just
Mm.
decided to make a film because I think I know what I'm doing. And it felt about the same with Disney's work.
Oh,
um,
interesting. Well, I guess it comes down to this. You know, we as the audience did have expectations of the 2020 Mulan living up to or being at least as good as the original, and to show us something new and different. And, there was a big time gap between the like 22 years, right? So advances had been made, and we did have high expectations of what could be done with the story, beloved characters and protagonists. And I think that is probably the biggest hill that they had to climb, is to meet the expectations of the audience, both American and Chinese. And they just fell short. There's no other way to say it. They didn't do their job as far as the research and what they had to work with, and they probably rushed it out to get it out in COVID. Like I don't know, but they fell short of expectations, and and I and you can't recover from that. I mean, the movie can't. Obviously, the company and all that, they're fine. Disney's fine,
well,
but
Disney is quite heavy, quite big. That is true. Even though with their recent management, a lot of things are falling apart, um, which I guess Walt Disney himself would not agree with. But yeah, we'll
yeah,
see. With the film, I think being Disney and having budget in place, and if they would probably not play with egos or something like that, but take it. Okay, let's see. We have a lot of issues. I would spend another 50 million to fix it.
Mm,
Let it be 250 million budget. With Disney, I think it's fine, but sell it well then. So it's not going to
mm,
make 60 or whatever was million worldwide for a worldwide known story. It's just
yeah.
I believe strongly that let's say 250 or even 300 would have been no problem if the story is good.
Right.
And
And they're known for making those kind of budgets. They could make $1 billion on a good movie.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, worldwide.
And if again the expectations was there, the audience had expectation. I
Yeah.
didn't. I had two red flags, I think. The first
Mm,
one, when I've learned who is the director, and I did not know the director, so I was
mm,
okay. It could not be the best product
right.
because of um, the director doesn't really have experience in that thing, in the culture, in a way. The second thing, when I found out who is the main actress, when I found out who is the
Mm,
main actress, I knew there will be just trash, which it happened.
mm,
But if they wanted to do something like Crouching Tiger, they probably would have worked better with Ong Lee or someone of that level to make it really nice.
right.
Or I mean, even Guy Ritchie's Genie with Will Smith,
Oh yeah.
made by Disney, was done really well.
That was
So
a great movie.
why they risked in so many ways, and it could have also been a choice of the Chinese party. We don't know
Right.
because they were
Well,
so
there's
persistent.
also like who's available. Like of the people you want, you have your first, second, third choice, and then you start working down the list until you find who's available. Um, and everybody, the more cooks in the kitchen, if you have everybody, so many different producers, and everybody wants to have their say because of their egos,
Yeah,
then it the message and everything gets diluted, like the choices. I think that's it's challenging. I think it's really challenging.
it is, and we saw the result. But if you as a company and you are as executive or the board of directors, you want to make it successful and you have the best choice one, two, three, and they're all not available, you probably want to wait until they are.
Yeah.
Risking this much money and risking this story, it doesn't make sense.
Okay. So that's something I thought about with we're not talking about Snow White right now, but we're going to.
Yeah.
But with Mulan and all of what Disney does, if you look at their choices of the stories, they pick IP. They don't use original IP. They choose IP that is free, basically, like these old folk tales, stories, things that have been around that they then take and create the movie script around it, like
Mhm.
Snow White and Cinderella, and all those were fairy tales from hundreds and hundreds of years ago. So
The Little Mermaid, yeah.
yeah, so it's their public domain, and they're not. So they're not. Their budget isn't part of that, right? You're not having to spend that. But then it becomes theirs once they write the story, and then they have
Yeah.
that uh, uh, the script and everything. And so what you just said about they're playing with their own, they're risking their own story, and they're risking the reputation of the original and how well the original did by making a remake or doing something that falls so short. So I would, yeah, in that instance, it's like you have to be really careful with all the sequels and the remakes that it doesn't bring the brand down, that it not the brand, but the franchise, right? It doesn't
Mhm.
dilute the franchise or bring it down. That's
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't really think they've created a franchise. I think that they would need to refilm or make another film um, to give life to this possible franchise.
Right.
and they would better make it in Hollywood way with proper research, or just all fictional,
Yeah.
which would be then perfectly fine. Just like they succeeded with the original animation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because there's no point in showing the scenery while traveling. It doesn't add anything to the story. Okay, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Because it's not about that. The story is about the people and the how they um what they do against adversity, like how they handle adversity and
mhm.
personal integrity and all of the things about it. It's just it. Yeah, it's a personal journey, hero's journey, obviously. But that's what we care about, and that's what we're watching. You know how they deal with that, not what the scenery looks like.
Yeah, and also, again, it was a weak project, weak acting. We had Shang-Chi, which, thanks to the old Hong Kong fleet of really good actors, it wasn't a
Mhm.
really bad thing. But their choices of the leads, whatever is Simu Liu and Aquafina. Aquafina, okay, she plays always the way she plays.
Yeah.
She has like a comedic relief for a main character, but they chose just the weakest. Then you see another flop of American Born Chinese, a TV show again on Disney,
Mhm.
with Asian communities, Chinese community story behind. Even with Daniel Wu and Michelle Yeoh, it was canceled.
Ah.
So probably maybe it's not your domain.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe you should find better people to put these projects in work, and not the ego. um, I'm really curious to see the I think upcoming or already released the new Karate Kid.
Oh, I haven't seen. I know. I didn't know.
Yeah, the Sony, it's Sony's production, it's not Disney, thank God.
Okay.
But what kind of bothers me in a business way, not like, I don't have nightmares, but again, the show which Disney did, the American Born Chinese, they
Hmm.
had a very stereotypical, weak, pathetic uh, lead character. And it seems like it's the original condition of the person playing. I think it's Ben Wong or something. And so you're playing a very weak, stereotypical Chinese boy, ABC, American Born Chinese.
Hmm.
The show is a failure. They're canceled, no views. And they are choosing the same young boy, young actor, to play, to be a lead in Sony's Karate Kid.
Interesting.
Like, why would you do that? Are you trying to constantly portray the Asian community as losers, as something weak? Can't you find someone strong
Yeah.
as a character, as a personality right away? Because you could see who is a weak, pathetic loser and who is not. Even though you get a role, but still, there's a
Well,
like
that's interesting because I think that a lot of the strategy around casting these days has to do with if they feel exposure to an actor or yeah, exposure to an actor through whatever they've done before. Sometimes it's as influencers, it's their social media, the other roles that they've done. They will almost go for somebody who might not be the best choice. Like if you think of strictly like best acting, best strength of the character and what they can bring to the character and all of that, they'll choose somebody because they have a following or that they've been exposed to the public before and the public is familiar with their face and therefore that recognition will bring people in. It's they equate in my estimation, a lot of the executives equate exposure to a person as, like a set audience, like it's a built-in audience for
Mhm.
their film. So maybe because not that he was the best choice, but because the public had already seen him and he had that exposure. What do you think?
Well, with Mulan, I don't really think that the girl the lady who played Mulan had a big exposure here and
No, not
worldwide.
here.
She is decently popular in China though. Now with the Karate Kid, as we're just having like a comparison, right? They knew already that the show didn't have enough views and it was canceled. So views wise and following wise, it's a negative.
Okay.
Maybe it's just my guess. Again, I'll watch it and maybe we'll record another episode on that. That will be interesting. But maybe for them, it's easier to show some sort of development based on a very weak character in the beginning, maybe. But
Well, I think that's one of the points of the Karate Kid, right? That he starts off as a kid who knows nothing. He doesn't have any skills and grows into somebody who develops that. It's like
yeah,
if
that
you
is
have somebody who's at 70%, you take them to 100%, that's not as great of a jump as somebody who's at nothing. And you take them to 50%, that's a bigger jump.
yeah, that's true. But if we check on the earliest Karate Kid with Daniel Larusso, or what's his Ralph
Ao?
Macchio,
Oh, Macchio, yeah.
yeah, he wasn't a martial artist.
No,
But looking at his acting, at his character, at his own character, his personality, and the character he was portraying, you don't feel a weak, pathetic loser. You
no,
see a young guy who is struggling. He's not giving up. He's actually more negative than positive in multiple ways, but portrayed in a positive way. So people like him, but not Johnny.
yeah,
You wouldn't call Ralph a loser, even though
no,
he's not a martial artist. His kicks are awful, but he's a good actor, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah. Okay,
he's a
I see what you're
strong
saying.
presence. This one, even I mean, if you check a few episodes or just a trailer, you will see what I'm trying to
Okay,
say.
I'll check
Just
it out.
yeah, but
So
with
you're saying
Mulan,
the presence of the actor, the charisma, their actual presence, and the fact that do we want to watch them? Do we want to? Is it something that we want to be engaged in?
yeah, yeah. Well, let's research on that and let's have another episode on the
The new Karate Kid.
the new Karate Kid, but also let's roll a little bit backwards. Let's reverse engineer the process, and also let's include the American-born Chinese, the
Okay,
canceled TV show, into that discussion
that'd
and
be
analysis.
interesting. Okay,
That will be interesting.
yeah.
Well, let's sum up our episode on Mulan. Um, do you believe there would be um, another chance for a film, not an animation, but a real life action for Mulan, or you think it's kind of dead for quite some
Oh
time?
no, I think this killed it. I don't think they can come back from this. I think there's a bad taste unless they wait another 20 years, so that everybody who had watched it is older and having kids and it's
Okay.
their kids that go to see it. I think that when you have something that has left this bad of a taste in people's mouths, then they're not going to want to spend money to go out and see another try at it. I think, especially from Disney, people expect more because Disney normally does really great work. Um,
Well, we haven't seen that recently, and we'll discuss that in our next episode as well. But 20 years, I'll be 59
okay,
with a few Oscars and Emmys. Yeah, I think
that's
it's
right.
doable.
So
It's
you'll be
doable.
able to talk about
We
it.
will. Why not? It's fun.
Maybe that'll be you. Maybe they'll offer you that opportunity to.
Well, that's why I'm counting my age. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Well, Colleen, thank you for joining me at this discussion. It was fun, and I'm looking forward to our next one. We will be talking about the Snow White.
Yes. Thank you, Victor. Pleasure.